I think at some point somebody actually said, "Ma'am, we are not responsible that you're pregnant." I was like, why? Why would I
Wow.
assume that you had anything to do?
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Parenthoot, a space where we hold stories of parenting as they are tender, turbulent, expansive, and unfinished. Where we talk not just about children, but about the lives we live while raising them. I am Neha, and I'm so glad you're here. This week's guest is someone whose work I have long admired for its brilliance, its boldness, and its blistering honesty. She is one of the most compelling literary and political voices of our time, a poet, novelist, translator, and activist whose writing doesn't just speak truth to power, but often stares it down with unflinching grace. Meena Kandasamy. Meena has written about caste, gender, violence, survival, and love with a clarity and courage that few dare to claim. Her words carry fire, yes, but also a deep, persistent yearning for justice and for the quiet dignity of being seen. Meena's body of work includes Touch, Miss Militancy, The Gypsy Goddess, Exquisite Cadavers, and When I Hit You. And with each piece, she has built a world where resistance and vulnerability coexist. But today, we meet her not just through the lens of her public and political self, but also through the deeply personal role she now holds as a mother of two young sons. From surviving an abusive marriage to rebuilding a life and a body of work rooted in justice, language, and courage, Meena's journey into parenthood is as layered and radical as her writing. So join me as we step into Meena's world where lullabies and literature often overlap, and where revolution begins not just in protest, but also in parenting. Meena, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Neha. Thank you for having me. And thank you for this wonderful introduction that, yeah, left me quite blushing. But I've never talked about parenthood before, so I'm really eager to be on this show and,
Mm.
share what I think about it with you.
Lovely. And before we start talking about parenting, I want to start with you. If you were to
Hmm.
describe yourself using only three words or phrases that capture the essence of who you are, what would they be and why?
Oh, God. Uh, wow. I don't know, this is deep. I've never thought of myself like that. I think I'm kind.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm very forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think I'm very patient.
You are
Patient,
patient. Wow.
patient.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And and tell me, you are a writer. You are a woman of words. So if your life were a book, what chapter are you living right now?
The mother, the motherhood chapter, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, but I think the more intense years of motherhood are kind of behind me because I realize I'm now 40 and I realize looking back that a lot of my 30s was literally just about having children, going through their infancy, they're being toddlers and all of that. So I'm kind of settling into this new life where they're actually at school and I'm able to in some way look back and get some element of control over my own time. A little bit,
Right.
not much, but still a little bit. Yeah.
Right. Right. And and tell us about them. Tell us little about the boys. Something that makes each of them uniquely them. How are they?
Um, Yeah, so I have two children. They're 6 and 8. Uh, the 8-year-old is really soft, really kind. I mean, like it's like, somebody went to a shop and gave a custom order for, I want an angel, and you got
Oh.
all of that. Very well behaved, is very sweet, he doesn't, sometimes he wakes up at 6 and I'm still sleeping and doesn't wake me up because I'm like, he just takes the books and reads it and says, Amma, you were sleeping. I didn't want to disturb your sleep. Like really evolved, I don't know, very understanding child. And my second child is an absolute thug. I think all my thuggishness went into him. And he's like, the other day I remember telling him, um, when Amma was at school, I used to be really good at science. And he told me, what do you mean? What do you mean you're good at science? Your teacher told you all the science stuff. It's not like you sat there and thought it up yourself. He's brutal. He's brutal. He's savage. Yesterday he called his dad dumb, and his father was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Why do you call me dumb? And he goes and he says, do you mean Papa is not intelligent? And he says, no, I didn't say that. It's just that you don't use your intelligence.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
so
profound.
yeah, so it's very savage, and we are like we're always hurting at the edges, not knowing what's going to come next. I think the only person he's gentle with is his elder brother. I think nobody else can, stand in that line of fire. So yeah.
Yeah. And Meena, tell us about your partner, how you met and how that relationship has evolved over the years, especially in light of parenting together.
Actually, this is interesting. I met him in 2013, and we've been together since. Uh, and I don't know because I had a very what do you call? I think motherhood was one thing that never appealed to me. I never thought of myself as a mother. I don't think I had a single maternal instinct in my body. Like
Yeah.
absolutely no. And I also this often you find girls going to children and doing like all this coochie cooing, right? Look
Yeah.
at this boo boo baba. I was like very neutral about children. I don't think I had any negative feelings. I was not like turned off or anything, but I never had like, this being drawn to children or finding them cute or anything. I'm like, I think my whole idea was that if I do something, I'm gonna, like drop them or, like,
Yeah.
scare them or, uh, or something. So, or, like give like my cold or fever or something. So I always like kept my distance from children. Never thought that I belonged in a world with children. Um, and my partner was it's right opposite. He was always like, always thinking about children and dreaming about children. So I think we came from very different places. And obviously, I mean, after I became a mother, I became the most intense mother you can see. But and I think, yeah, I the other day I did the math and I realized that from 2016 to 2021, that's the entire period of 5 years. All I did was I was either pregnant or breastfeeding, and that's like, a good five
Wow.
year chunk of your life. Uh, and um, and I think that yeah, that's something that nobody factors in when they talk about mothers. So, but my partner has been very helpful. Is a very kind parent, and his entire parenting is the exact diametrical opposite of mine. And I think it's quite interesting for the children because at this point possibly they learned how to play us.
Uh-huh.
But I'm like, yeah, he's like very European and like rules-based international order which is sailing everywhere, but it gets imposed on parenting. So it's like, oh, 8 p.m. bed. And I was like, brought up in a family where I'm still sure my niece goes to bed at 2 in the morning or something. But it's very with children, like he brings this entire system of order and system into it. And I actually think it's a great thing to do with kids because I mean, I may not have the discipline. I may be living an artist life and, choose to work when I'm inspired, choose to sleep when I'm tired, follow these things. But I don't think you can do that with children. I think with children, having someone like him, it helps them have, structure. It helps them because structure is so comforting, actually.
Yeah.
It tells them what to expect. And I think lessons is so really, really brilliant. And, he has a no sugar policy. So
Wow.
that's where like, yeah. My children are like, they come to me with these big rolling eyes and like, yeah, asking me for this little extra bit of jam or asking me to make pancakes, which, I find a way to work around. But, so it's quite interesting. We have I think this it's already I think it's very enriching for the children as well because I'm a Tamil mother and when they were younger I would feel that unless I was feeding the children with my own hands I wouldn't feel like they have eaten their food, you know,
Yeah.
uh, because that's really I think that after breastfeeding I was for the second one at least till he was 2.5 I was like really I thought that feeding them was part of what I had to do so I would feed them with my hand and also because kids are like they just like to run around and not eat and when they eat and they're like they eat more when you feed them as well by hand but he's like the opposite, right? The diametrically opposite, where you just let your children put them on a high chair, put their food in front of them, and they're going to eat. And I'm like, this is not going to happen. This is not going to happen, you know. The child is going to play with the food. The child is going to push the food. He's not going to eat, you know. So I think at some point he does give in to me. He's like, he knows my method works because having angry children means having cranky children.
Yeah.
But the fact that for a long time, I mean, his sister and the family, they still do that. And I'm like, respect, man. That's not how my children have my genes. That's not how they're gonna do it. But obviously now they're too old for even for me to feed them by hand, unless it's circumstances are dire. But
Yeah.
obviously, they never give up trying. I mean, like every evidence can be against it, but this European knee-jerk thing to put order into things. And my children are stubborn, our children are stubborn. They're not going to do it. They're going to do everything else until they have their way. So it's been quite interesting. But I mean, on those kind of things, there's obviously, I think nobody talks about it enough because it's not a wide experience, but there's always a culture clash. I mean, like he's European, he's Belgian. I'm Tamil, so it's been quite a dreadlock, but I think it's been a very fascinating journey. Because you see, there's a point at which people crack, and I think it's always, as far as I know, the Indian parenting is the better parent. I don't say better parenting, the more no, the more efficient, but also the more kinder to the parents
Yeah.
parenting. Because, for instance, you know, uh, I mean, for instance, we gave birth to a son in London, and there's this whole idea that, at 6 months, everyone else around us was having babies. At 6 months, the child sleeps in another room. At
Yeah.
some point, the child has to sleep in a crib. The child has to sleep next to their mother. They're like, oh, you're going to suffocate your child to death. There's all this, sudden infant death syndromes,
Yeah.
SIDS. And I'm like listening to all of them really carefully. And I'm like, 1 billion people, their mothers are sleeping with their children and nobody is suffocating their baby to death. It just doesn't happen, you know. And but the thing is, Western science has assumed that it is always so morally superior. And that's
Yeah.
the thing, and even the findings are not there. The findings are like, maybe in half of the cases it was the mother, maybe it was alcoholism. They just don't know. This is sudden infant death syndrome. How do you explain it on the mother?
Yeah.
Right? But somehow, even if the numbers don't match, they wanted to match the theory and so I'm like, everyone in India is sleeping with their children, nothing's happening. And obviously, you try that, right? Because these midwives are coming home and they're making sure the child is in a separate place. And then you realize the child is not sleeping. And because the child is not sleeping through the night, the mother is not sleeping. The child and the mother are not sleeping. It's not like the father is a heavenly being, the father is also not sleeping. So
Yeah.
you have an entire sleep deprived family. And then another day, you put your child next to you, like, your mother has done, her mother has done, everybody's mother has done. The child sleeps, the child feeds themselves.
Yeah.
And you sleep well because the mother sleeps when the child is sleeping. And then the house is quiet, the dad gets his sleep. And so I've always had like, and obviously in things like that, it's the evidence is so profoundly on your side that you don't have to get to an argument.
Yeah.
So sorry. So it was not just about, it's about Cedric in some ways, but also I think it's about extremely different parenting styles. It's about raising your children in India, raising them in Europe, raising them in America. So it's like it was all of this, but sorry to sorry to hold
No,
forth,
no,
but
no, no. This
I
is
had
so
to share.
fascinating.
I had to share because we have this whole idea that that some way they're pushing a certain um a certain way of looking at things, and I think
Yeah.
that somehow we'll have to be. I mean, I don't think it's revivalist. I don't think it's like, uh, what some of the people are trying to do by dragging our country back. I just think it's common sense. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So talking about that, what's the dynamic like now in your home? How would you, is there a typical day? Because you talked about structure. So with
Yeah, yeah,
respect
yeah.
to children, what does a typical day look like in
No,
your
no,
household?
thank God there is a typical day because they managed to go to school. So no, so the thing is the typical day is more like, yeah, they wake up, I don't know, like the second one is like me, he really like, why is every day a school day? Why do I have to get up? It's like, and it really makes me feel bad because I feel how I used to feel. But I had really, really laid back parents, and my parents used to be like, a child's brain grows the best when they're sleeping. So I'm gonna let my children sleep.
Wow.
And if I had to skip school, they were like, yeah, you're possibly skipping some lessons, but your brain's still, like recovering, resting, growing, whatever. So you're fine, you can skip school. And they were both professors, so you couldn't argue against their general wisdom. It's not like they want to keep you stupid or keep you missing classes. They were like, sleep is good. Sleep is possibly the least bad thing you could do to yourself. It's the most
Wow.
good thing, wholesome thing you could do to yourself. So they were very pro sleep. And so I have missed a number of days of school because I got up late. Not always, but sometimes. So, coming from that kind of thing, I'm like, but the first one really wakes up much before me, and then he wakes up his father, and then he has breakfast. So they're out of the house around 7.
Mm-hmm.
They wake up around 6, sometimes 5:30, and I've told them, look how dark it is, go and sleep, please. And then yeah, then they are back by around 3. And that's when I find time. I mean, I find time as in I manage to. But the thing is, and then I finish with their day, and then they're back by 3. They come back, they do their homework, watch a little bit of TV for which they fight. So it's something on the iPad about Minecraft or Lego or something. And then, yeah, they play with each other. They play endlessly, and I think they're very close together in age. So they find a lot of fascinating stuff to play with each other. And there's like never
Wow.
any hitting, bawling, shouting. And I also think that as long as the parents keep out of it, like as long as you're not playing the arbiter,
Yeah.
they know how to resolve their own conflicts, and so there's no question of who is being partial. And because I think our parents, when we just go there, we exert pressure and make them one of them feel left out, or the other feel included or
Yeah.
whatever. So there's no parent, there's no pressure, right? And I feel in that sense it's really good because they never have fights, at least so far, no. And yeah, then around 7 or something, they have dinner and they go to bed. So
Wow.
it's quite a very, very structured. They go to bed as in, yeah, they are in bed, but they may sleep around 9 or sleep around 8:30. So when I'm with them, I'm supposed to, all the three of us invent characters. And yeah, I think we take turns putting them to bed. So we invent characters and we invent on all of these characters going on long adventures. And it's always crazy animals that I've never heard of. Like it's always like a platypus or an ocelot. And I'm like, what? Um, and yeah, so we have to make this kind of story. So every night they look forward to the story. I think with their father, it's much more like he's just reading some French children's book and they're happy. So it's with them. But after, I think the thing is when you're a mom, you always think that you've given your day fully away. So I overcompensate after they have slept. I try to work. Sometimes I work till 1, I work till 2. That's when I catch up on all my deadlines.
Yeah.
Sometimes I work all through the night and just meet them in the morning. So
Wow.
yeah, my sleep schedule is really, really bad because I'm trying very hard to catch up and get stuff done.
Yeah.
But this is the typical day. Yeah.
Yeah, and you talked about your sleep schedule. I want to know, has motherhood shifted your way of being in the world? How you occupy your body, your space, your time? Has it shifted that?
I think in some ways you do realize a lot of stuff. For instance, as I said, I was breastfeeding earlier. I think this whole idea of this sense of who sees you, who doesn't see you, it flies out of the window. It's a very physical need to feed your child,
Yeah.
and but I think I was very lucky in that sense. but around the world, I don't think I had met a lot of perverts. A lot of people leave feeding mothers alone, even if you're feeding them in public. I mean,
Yeah.
and this is in India included, or at least because I was in the South, this was my experience. I mean, I didn't have to go restrict myself in some room or the other. I was feeding them on, planes or cars or, in libraries or cafes and, not bothering. So obviously your body, your relationship to the gendered body is very different after you're a mother, especially a breastfeeding mother, because either the world doesn't look at you the same way they used to look at you before you become a mom,
Yeah.
and there's a profound way in which they acknowledge you,
Yeah.
and there's of course sometimes it could be tinged with the fact that I was an immigrant woman either pregnant or breastfeeding, and the idea is that it's only the immigrants who are having babies. Sometimes I have felt that kind of racist outlook, but you're still a mother,
Yeah.
even if you're an immigrant who is coming and populating their country. At the end of the day, the fact that you're a mother is something that is seen with a little bit of respect, even if there is microaggression built into it. So I've always felt that that definitely changed for me because um, um, and I also I think for the first time after I became a mother, I realized people's propensity to help in a very visual way, because like you're pushing a pram, and
Yeah.
I think in India it's somehow because we don't have enough public transport and we don't have
Yeah.
enough options, we kind of are resigned to we have to burn money to get things done. So you have to get a car if you want to go anywhere. Um, you know, and anyway, prams are undoable, right? Like
Yeah.
you just have to carry your baby anywhere you go because the roads are not built for prams. The prams are not built for the roads. So, I was always carrying my child. But I think in the West, for instance, I used to be like with one toddler and one, baby infant. And, I used to be traveling, taking the tube and stuff like that. And you really realize that some people do want to come and help you with your pram. Some people do want to, like do something to facilitate, hold, make your life easy, especially if there's like you have to take the pram up and down the steps and stuff like that. So your relationship with other people also changes, right? Like
Yeah.
because before that you wouldn't have anything to say to anyone. I'm like always behind these shades, and I have a migraine problem, so I'm always wearing these sunglasses. So I would just like nobody would be acknowledged. But then you're at a
Yeah.
position where you have to either ask help or take help. I think that is quite interesting to be with that kind of humanity. Um, but you also have the other extreme. I remember once telling my students that I was teaching until I was 37 weeks pregnant in the second when I had the second child, and this was at NYU. I think at some point somebody actually said, "Ma'am, we are not responsible that you're pregnant." I was like, why? Why would I
Wow.
assume that you had anything to do? So there's also this, this entire way in which, yeah, young people may not relate to it, but
Yeah.
yeah, they'll get there. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's quite an interesting time. I think the question of the body and the question of the space is really more nice, but also I think the question of yeah, which is not talking, which is either not talked about at all, or it's talked too much, like
Yeah.
is about how does your body feel, how does your body, for instance, make love after having given birth to two children, because it's like some earthquake, some tectonic shift done there, so I don't know if we are addressing that enough as well, because that's also part of parenthood, right? Like what
Yeah.
happens to you. But I think the question of time is obviously the only person, and that's also why it's very important to talk about motherhood. The only person who told me about the dangers of becoming a mother or my own mother is my own mother.
Wow.
But she also told me after I gave birth to my child, saying, Meena, the fact that you gave birth to a child does not mean that I have become a nanny.
Hmm. Yeah.
So in this 8 plus 6, which is, some cumulative amount of 16 years of parenting, which is still
Yeah.
8 years,
Yeah.
she's possibly taking care of my children for a grand total of 3 days.
Wow.
I respect her for that. I
Mm.
absolutely respect her. I mean, the fact that I went and gave birth doesn't mean that, she's implicated in raising my
Yeah.
children, and I think she's always been clear about that. But
Yeah.
I think what she kind of meant was when she said to me that, um, she didn't want to play a role. And I admire her. I mean, my mother-in-law stepped in with both my births, and uh, you know. was around the house. Uh, but the thing is, my mom used to say that, Meena, you have to understand that when you have a child, it's for every child, it's 5 years of your career. And she was saying this
Mm.
to me before I had any child, before I was
Yeah.
even dating. Every child is 5 years of your career, or it's like two books off your bookshelf. I mean, if you're
Mm.
a writer, she was like translating it for me. And I've always felt that she was really honest about that. She was
Yeah.
very, very honest about that. And even as a writer, I had to find a way, I remember moving to India. One of my kids was like 1 year old. The other was 3 years old and so, so tiny. And my partner couldn't come because foreigners were not allowed because of the pandemic. And I was just single-handedly raising them. I got a babysitter, but she'd come for 3 hours. 3 hours is nothing in
Yeah.
a 24-hour day. And then I was really, really struggling, and I used to think like, how am I going to work? And this 3 hours is when I used to be like, please hold my babies. And then I used to go take my shower,
Mm.
change, think about the bills, look at what errands I had to run. It was awful. But I also had to realize that what my mom was saying was coming through. That in having these children, these 5 years, these two books were going off my shelves. It was just not going to exist. And I think in a certain way, having children allowed me to come back to poetry because I realized that, in the little time they're sleeping, in the little time they're playing with each other, in the little time they don't need me, I could focus on a poem. I couldn't write a
Wow.
novel at that time because
Yes.
novel is like, hours and hours and hours. I mean, even without children, it's like years of your life, right? Like,
Yeah.
and often you're going to put days together on end on it. So I think a lot of poetry came back to me. I managed to finish this book on the Tirukkural. I was working for a long time.
Yes.
I managed to compile my own poetry of the last 13, 14 years together. So I just decided, no, I'm going to work with something in small format.
Yeah.
No, and at the same time, not feel like I'm not doing anything and no, and therefore resent my children because it's a lot of people don't talk about it, but mothers can resent their children if you
Yes.
think that you're not going anywhere, and you think, oh, this child held you back. I mean, like we all get held back because of laziness. We get held back because it's just a bad luck. You also, I mean, at least I don't know what other professions, but writing involves such an amount of luck. You have to be lucky. You have to be no get noticed. You have to win that award or get a bigger grant or something has to happen. And if it doesn't happen, I mean, all of that also stalls you, but everybody also is very quick to think the children stall them, and I didn't
Mm.
want to be that parent.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't want at any point to be that parent who thinks my children stall me. So I found my ways about it. But actually, I went back to my mother and I asked my mother about it. Like, you said that every child is like 5 years off my career. And then she's like, but you had your kids very quickly next to each other. So, it's not 5 plus 5. It's going to be more like, 5 plus 3 or something because you raised them together. I was like, thank you, mom. And then I was like, mom, is it really that bad? Because, if I got, my first son at 32, is it like only at 40 I can reclaim my life? And actually, it's true. It's like only now they're both at school, at least for like quite a solid period of time. And
Yeah.
your life begins to look like something that you could have had earlier.
Yeah.
And then she told me, but Meena, that's only one side of it. She said, you become so much faster at doing things. You become so much better at handling multiple
Yeah.
things. And therefore, you're going to catch up like anybody else. And I was like, oh, you should told me this a bit earlier, because
You'll
so,
have that
and
thing to hold on to.
yeah, 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 I would have thought that, at least there was that hope. And then she's like, okay, but mom, I'm so tired. Like, even if I get this time, I can't do anything because, it's so exhausting. And I mean, I don't believe in supplements, and I don't also believe in, I don't know, like I don't know how to get my energy back. And I don't believe in, yeah, going and working out because I think that's going to make me even more tired. And also, I don't have that kind of time. I don't have like 2 hours to work out because that 2 hours I'd rather actually work.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, what do I do? And then my mom's like, oh, just wait for menopause. She actually said that to me. She said, then you'll be so liberated. You'll have so much energy. And I'm like, wow, thank you, mom. But I think I don't know the women's
Yeah.
body, the mother's body has to go through all of that. So anyway, so all of this is true.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And you've also spoken about how spontaneous activism and travel has become more complicated. So what does your activism look like now in this phase of life?
Yes, because I cannot take my children with me when I go. It's not very easy to handle them during protests. So I do manage not to go to so many events as I would before.
Yeah,
Um, s- s-
yeah,
yeah, so I think there's obviously that fact that yeah, I'm not able to be present as much as I want to be present in the places I want to be present. And also I think I have not done a writing residency uh since the birth of my children. I realized I learned I was pregnant when I was in a residency in Berlin.
wow.
I was alone. This was in May 2016, I think. Yeah, 2016. And I learned I was pregnant. And, there's literally no one. I think even the device that you use
Yeah.
to take a pregnancy test was in German. It said Schwanger. I'm like, yeah, stronger. So okay, that's what pregnant means. So yeah, obviously that was the last residency I did, and because you don't want to. I mean, like it's doesn't matter what your life is, but you don't also want to spend time away when they're growing, right? Like
Yeah,
your career is one thing, but their growth is also so beautiful. Because even when I go on travel to festivals or something, I come back and like I always see. I don't know how, but in the faces of my children, I see this. I don't know in Tamil, there's this word "yekam." It's a kind of yearning. They feel
yeah,
it's like their mother's not there, and that deprivation of the mother, I really see it on their faces. And you don't see that like in a 2 hour visit or three. You're gone for a week, you come back, there is that look in their eyes. That what I call is like rombo ekam, like too much of yearning, and I'm like, I can't do this again. But also I think that they suddenly grow when you're not there. Like
yeah,
I've never been away from them in that sense for like a month or anything, so I wouldn't be able to know. But definitely, I've done like 1 or 2 weeks, or at least 10 days. I've done,
yeah,
and and
yeah,
also start doing very like strange things. Like I don't call them when I'm traveling because I realized at some point, both me and my partner, that when you call them, you actually trigger them because they are
yeah,
so much easier for them to settle into a new space that doesn't have you and to continue, because when you call them you remind them and they think that they want you again in proximity, so it becomes very hard for them to come back. So yeah, it does change how much you can travel, what you can do. So yeah, it is like it's also one of those things where you suddenly become somebody who flies much more than take a train, because I'm like,
yeah,
I'm not spending 2 days in a train because that's time I'd rather spend with my child. And, I'd rather take the flight. And you're like, yeah, you go to a festival, you want to spend all the 6 days, hang out with the writers, but you're like, oh, let me just come in on the morning of my event and leave the next day morning or leave the same evening because I want to be with my children. I think it changes you. I mean, like, people can think you are rude or other stuff, but also this is the only way to handle it, right? You'll have to be there for the children. You cannot make it unfair on your partner to just disappear. So,
yeah, yeah. And this is more about logistics and how you plan out your life in that sense. But also, has motherhood redefined your creative voice? Has becoming a mother brought a shift in what you choose to write about, or how you write it? Has it expanded your emotional or political vocabulary in some way?
uh, So, see. I think I want to have a caveat to this. I generally think that the idea of the mother is in, at least in India, but possibly very around the world also, related to some kind of desexualization of the human being. And it's
Right.
a very strange thing because you are having sex to become a mother, and then on the other hand, you come out of the other side absolutely desexualized. And I think that that's something I've completely resisted. I don't think that, because you're a mother means that you go into some. It's not
Yeah.
like you've joined a cult of a sexuality
Yeah.
afterwards, right? Like, so I think that I don't want to be that, whatever. I don't think that you need to be asexual to be venerated, or, you want to be desexualized in order to be, like to gain that kind of respect. I mean, like, yeah, this is a human function, a normal
Yeah.
body function. So I don't think that I've had that pressure on me. I've never felt that, even if others are expecting, oh, she's a mom and she's writing about sex. uh, I can't care less about
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
But having said that, I do think that there's something about having children that does change how you see things, because you never realize until you've actually had your own children that how politically conscious children are. I mean, I used to
Yes.
teach, but I used to teach 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds,
Yeah.
not small. And like your children are talking about Palestine, they're talking about Gaza, they're talking about Israel, and they're asking you all these hard questions, and you have to answer them, and you
Yeah.
cannot answer them. And they're not like, you have to, and you also have to answer them because they have very strong responses to this, right? Because what they're seeing is injustice, and you want to take their side, so it's very crazy because there are a number of conversations we have about Palestine and Gaza, especially with children, and it's like 1 hour, 1.5 hours, and they just go on and they go on and they go on, and it's crazy. So obviously they understand that, America is implicated. They're sending their weapons. They understand that, and they're like, what can we do? We are in India. What can Indian government do? And like it's so to try to talk them through the horrors of our time is something else.
Yeah.
Because obviously there are things like, okay, we cannot soil the world, we cannot put plastic everywhere because,
Yeah.
sharks are dying. Obviously, that's one level of politics to which I kind of expected. I kind of knew that was coming from, that our children are going to hold us to account about recycling and things like that. But that's just, posh schooling and
Yes.
what everybody wants to focus on. But the questions of war, the questions of genocide, the questions of what's happening around our time, I think children are so much involved. And I don't think there's enough writing or even material. Nobody's telling children what's happening.
Yes.
Like I think it becomes very ring fenced. And I think we are political parents, so we share this or answer them. But a lot of parents might just shield their children from it.
Yes.
So I don't know what is it, but yeah. But I don't think again that, can I write for children? Have I written for children? No. That's always been a no-no for me before having children, after having children. So
And why is that?
no, I think it's a part of the same thing, this whole idea of what you do with your time. And
Right.
for me, I think there are people who possibly are doing this much better than me. I don't want to
Yeah.
do everything that, I want to do the things that only I can do.
Right.
Uh, I think that people who do their work are doing them fabulously. I don't think I can create any disruption. I mean, I'm sure what I'm doing in poetry, others are not doing. I'm sure what I'm doing in fiction or Indian writing in English or experimental literature or the understanding of violence, all kinds of structural violence, which I think I don't think is being explored enough, and I'm doing that. And with children, I think the books are fabulous, and I'm not sure I've yet ever seen a point in which I can make the smallest dent of change because I think what's out there is already really, really brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. And I wanted to ask you about legacy, Meena. What does legacy mean to you now, as someone whose work has always challenged generational injustice? What kind of world do you hope your children inherit? And as you said, talking about these subjects, how does that shape your parenting and your politics while talking to the children?
No, my politics doesn't have to change. I'm very convinced of my politics. I mean, whether it was talking to my own parents about stuff, they were very political, or whether it's talking to my children about stuff, I think that I don't think that in that sense my children shift my balance, because
Yeah.
I think I've always been on the right side, and I don't think that children are conservative or anything. So and I think that on their own they're coming to a lot of the realizations that we have come to. Um, and so does it shift me? No. But do I think children need to be politicized? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, do I think that, but I do think that, they're in a wonderful place. I think they're not in a school where somebody's going to call them and tell them not to have these thoughts or not to ask these questions. They're really encouraged to ask these questions. Um, but what I have realized is that our children are possibly I believe that all through time, children have gone through, like, events that are catastrophic and, era defining. And for us, for instance, it would always be like, the struggle for self-determination in Ilam, like I'm from Tamil Nadu, and leading up to even uh, the genocide in 2009, and which we witnessed very closely, or it would be the caste conflicts in which Dalits were killed by, feudal militia like the Ranveer Sena in Bihar in the late 90s, early 2000s. It would be the nuclear test. It would be the Kargil war. I mean, this was the landscape against which it would be the fall of the Berlin Wall. It would be the fall of the Soviet Union. So these are all things that, in some way happen around us, but to
Right.
hold meaning for us, right? And
Yeah.
I think for our children, it's like it's all of this, but it's much more accelerated. It's not the same event, of course, but it's much more accelerated. It's much more faster, and it's killing on a scale that has never been seen before.
Right.
Uh, and I think that every generation is going to genuinely be affected by what is happening.
Yes.
And I don't think there's any point of turning back. Like
Yeah.
there's no turning back. You can't come back from genocide. You cannot come back from live stream genocide. You cannot come back from the fact that once children know that tens of thousands of children have been killed
Yeah.
for the sake of a brutal siege and occupation. Uh, there is something in them that's going to snap, and it's like and even if you are not exposing them to that, they're going to realize that someday that this
Yeah.
happened. And how do we come back from that? There's no coming back. There's only, like,
I
how
have
do you have
lost
to
you. I
talk
have
through
lost
that,
you,
talk
Meena.
through with them. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You said, how do they come back from it?
Yeah, I don't think there's any coming back for us as a society. I don't think there's any point of return at this point. The only point is the way forward. So yeah, that's something I wanted to tell you.
Yeah. And talking of that, this kind of quiet rage that has been a powerful part of your writing, raw, defiant, and I also think necessary. Has do your children know the kind of fire you carry in your words? Do How much of your activist and literary legacy do they understand?
Oh, no, no, it's this is quite interesting. My son came and told me, Mama, you're an author, but I like Dev Pilkey more. He's the guy, I think he's the guy who writes Dogman, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's like, okay. I like Dev Pilkey more because he keeps you occupied.
Yeah.
He keeps you reading for hours, so I'm not entering that competition. I'm happy he exists in this world, so
Yeah.
they as I told you, my children are very brutal. And I think the first one for a long time was walking around saying, Mama, because you and I are writers, we have to know what's happening in the world. So at some point, both of them also see themselves as writers, but more as writers of comic books. And they make all these tiny books and they give it to me. Um, they haven't yet read any of my works, but I don't think they're too young, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're fascinated. I think they love the idea of writing, and it doesn't come from me because I don't think that writing is something you can teach. I mean,
Yeah.
writing is something that just comes out. So yeah, but I think it's because they're reading so many books that they're like, yeah, trying to make their own tiny books, and they always keep presenting their books to me, and drawing scenes and panels and stuff like that. But there's is a very visual element to it, and yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah.
But do they know what kind of a writer you are?
I don't know. I think for every person in the world, their mother is a mother. Like
Yeah.
my mother is a mathematician, right? Like she's an algebra. She's a pure mathematician. She's brilliant, but I know her as a mother.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that she's brilliant, I know that, but I don't know. I don't know the specifics of her brilliance. I
Yeah.
know I know her as a mother. I know her as a mother who listens to me, who's no bullshit mother, a mother who thinks in binary. Either I answer the phone and I'm alive, or I don't answer the phone, therefore I'm dead. You know, so I think I'm just going to be the mother. I cannot think of anything more than that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that makes sense. And tell me, Meena, what is it like to mother in public when your work and your personhood are so politically visible? How do you protect or reveal your children in public spaces, literary or activist?
I think we used to carry our children to a lot of protests when they were young and, in London, just put them in the pram and take them away. Here, I think there's a slight issue in India because my mom is asking me how would children respond when free? Any problem? Because I think I've possibly not answered the phone. So I'm not, the problem is that, for instance, my partner is a foreigner here, so we cannot go to he cannot take part in any political activity, and we try to respect the visa rules, so he doesn't go to protest. So it's just me, and I also think that my own children,
Yeah.
need to be protected because of the visa. I don't know, like it's just one of the ways in which I want to actually live in India, raise them in India, let them realize this reality here. And I also think that in some ways it's the kindest place to have children because everyone is kind to them and
Hmm.
nobody looks at them as a nuisance. I've never seen that.
Yeah.
And I also think there's something about India that really hardens you up. Like you learn how to work, think on your feet. You know how to respond immediately to things. You learn so many things, about asking for help. Basically, you learn
Yeah.
to ask for help in a way in which that's not intrusive. Like, in everywhere else, you really think twice, three times, five times to before you reach out and ask for help, or even ask if you can help somebody. So I think these are things that I want, to be ingrained in them. And for me, for a long time, it was like, I'm going to raise my children here. Doesn't matter where they want to end up, what they want to do with the rest of their life. I think that my own life is so definitive because I'm from here. I
Yeah.
mean, forget all of it. There is oppression, there is inequality, there's all of that. But even despite all of that, there's a sense of values, a sense of character. There's a very strong embodiment of, uh, your place is not just about you, but your place is also about how
Meena,
you
I lost
exist
you.
with others. And I want my children to learn that lesson, not live alienated what I witnessed abroad. Oh, sorry.
You
Sorry,
were
sorry.
saying
Yeah.
your
Is
place
that
is
better
not
now?
just, yeah, it's better now. You were saying your place is
Yeah,
not
yeah,
just
sure, sure,
about
sure.
you.
Yeah, yeah. So you understand to, live in society, you learn that you're more than just that to a single dimension. And I think that kind of is what I want my children to grow up to be.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah. And tell me, Meena, has parenthood given you any new rituals, any small or daily or weekly rhythms you've built with your children that are precious to you?
um, I think no, I think definitely I watch a movie sometime, at least once in 2 weeks with them. So that's something we do together. I make pancakes for them over the weekends for breakfast. So
Wow.
that's something they expect. They expect from me. And then I cook prawns for them again during the weekends. So that's also something that, they
Mhm.
expect from me. That mom's going to be making prawns. So yeah, I think it's a lot related to, I think food as this love language.
Yeah.
Uh, but uh, but yeah, I don't think there's anything beyond that. But I think there's an everyday ritual, right? Most every alternate night, I put them to bed, tell them a
Yeah.
story. So yeah, we're kind of looped into each other's life very much that way. So yeah.
Yeah. And my last question to you, Meena, if you could leave our listeners with one insight, one truth that you hold dear in your parenting journey, what would that be?
Um, I think never raise your voice against your children. Never show them you're angry.
Mm.
And I mean, because it is a very trying time, it's a very testing time. And obviously, never hit them and all that. But I realized once that, I remember, like just shouting at Ian and saying, "Oh no, why did you spill the milk?" or something like that. And I think he turned back and he said, "Mama, it's just milk. You can
Yeah.
wipe it up."
Hmm.
And I didn't and that's when I think I kind of realized that the scale of our reaction,
Hmm.
for something that can be so easily addressed.
Yeah.
uh, and I think that's the same with children, right? Like they don't see, and I think in that sense we have to be the most emotionally regulated people, and that we cannot, we might have had the most shitty day, we might have had the most shitty life, we might have had the most, we might be broke in the middle of the month, but I don't think our children deserve to feel any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think there's a way in which we'll have to it, uh, be kind to them. And, I think and this is very important to parenting because you see this constant offloading happening, constant offloading. Everybody talks about the way dreams are offloaded or desires are offloaded. The parent
Yeah.
doesn't realize this dream they offloaded. But I think for me, people are offloading anger much more on their children and the what we call the short temper much more on their children, their nervousness on their children, their disappointment on their children. I think it's a very beautiful, gentle time of life. And you just cannot go back to the past and recalibrate it. You cannot their memories are not erasable or editable. So you really have to 24 hours be on your best behavior around them. So that's what
Wow.
I would like to say. Yeah.
Wow. I am going to take that back in my life as well. Meena, thank you for the honesty, the stillness, the strength, and the subtleties. It's been an honor to hold space with you to talk
Thank you. Thank you,
about.
Neha. Thanks for the lovely thing you're doing. You're getting people to open up. And I wish you all the best for this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. And to everyone listening, thank you for being here with us. If today's conversation moved you, resonated with you, or made you feel seen, please share this episode, leave us a review, and subscribe to Parenthood wherever you get your podcast. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye bye.